How did you meet Harry Smith?
I actually was hanging out at the Anthology Film Archives a lot, and I was seeing they have a recycling program of the history of avant-garde cinema, and someone had mentioned to me to check out the Harry Smith film. So I went down to the Anthology and circled when the next time the films were going to be shown, and before the first 5 minutes the films were up, I was like, I have to meet this guy. So I asked a bunch of people. No one really wanted to tell me where he was. I says, well, it's not like that. And he's like, oh, it's not. So you're not a student. I says, well, I've seen your films and I really, really want to meet you. And he said, call me back in an hour. One time I was doing a show with him down in Soho, and we brought this film, Early Distractions, with us, so we set it up on the projector, and he said, I'd like to meet the DJ. So the DJ came up and he said, what's the most happening record that you have right now? What's today's hit? And he pulled out this record, he said, play that. And it worked unbelievably. The actual presentation that I do of his work is something that he put on once or twice before he passed away, and this was in the mid-60s. He had created all these drawings to go around his films, and he had projectors set up, and he had a giant black box that he would be inside, and he would, he was the magician pulling the strings, and he had all these different projection equipment set up, and a few people saw the show. If you are studying about Harry in the books, there's a Rosette Starr book called Experimental Animation. In the back of that book is a drawing and underneath it is a little blurb, and it says this drawing was designed, among others, to be projected around the Heaven and Earth Magic feature film. But the images that he had created, he was under the impression were just kind of gone. Ronnie Singh from the Harry Smith archives pulled out negatives that had been taken at the time on 4x5 film, black and white, of the images that were meant to be projected around his films. Of many of the images, I made high-low contrast so that we can show 5 different versions of the same drawing on the screen, each one with a different color gel in it, and you end up with a situation where you have almost a 3-dimensional projection. And then inside that, we're showing a movie. And the movies that he created were these tremendous, fierce works of art that combine everything from spatter painting to tantric hermeticism. But it's all being choreographed and manipulated in some Kabbalistic, formulaic array.
It's almost like a photograph of the workings of the brain. It's like eidetic imagery.
The images that he's left behind to work with are of such fantastic quality and so complex in their idiosyncrasies that all relate to one another, that when you start stacking all the images on top of each other and doing dissolve effects and stuff like that, it just bursts to life, because each separate image that he made was organized to relate to the one before it or the one after it, whichever of the many it might have been. I think a lot of his influence just came from his observations and his studies of different types of cultural phenomena. And also, the main thing that influenced this work is an attempt to visually portray music. And this is something that hadn't really been done before. You have the screen, which is filled with images, but every single image that you go from one to the next, as you're going there, there's a certain amount of visual information that's carried through them, because different key points of the drawings are relating to other key points in the drawing. So he has a frame that's a circle, and that's done in a geometrical fashion.
Right.
Then he has a similar frame that's done in a flower fashion. But the key points of the drawing are on top of one another, so that when you dissolve from one to the next, you just kind of get this geometric to flower thing going on. And somehow he was able to make all these things that were so disparate as something that some guy says, look, I'll study this. And another guy says, oh, I'll study this. And then there's a woman, oh, I'll study this. And then he took all these different areas of interest and combined them into a study of life. And then took that work and manifested through music, using the Anthology of American Folk Music, and then through his films, using everything from dye to photo cutouts from the Sears and Roebuck catalog in 1890. And when it's all done, it just seems like it makes sense.
Completely natural.
Which it's really hard to do these days.